All right, all rise. The court is now in session. The state of Iowa. You may be seated. Would the prosecution like to introduce themselves?
I am Elizabeth Gaskell.
I am Jake.
I'm Shelby Hollahan.
All right, defense?
My name is Victor Kama, and my co-attorneys are
Hannah Flanagan. And Rashida.
Excellent. Do we have an opening statement from the prosecution?
May it please the court, opposing counsel, and the members of the jury that pranks aren't funny to the people who are affected by them. Charlene Bakersville died on July 2nd, 2013. We are here today because of a prank meant to cause laughter on the internet, causing death. Today you will hear from Officer Lee Strad, the officer who responded to Miss Bakersville's death, and will be discussing the interviews he conducted. Miss Devin Baskerville, who will tell you about her experience in the prank elevator and her mother's death, and Dr. Drew Watson, who will tell you that Miss Baskerville's medical exam can be turned into a conclusion on why she died. Miss Funt is being charged with involuntary manslaughter of Charlene Bakersville. In order to prove this, we will show that Alan Funt recklessly and intentionally set up a situation that would cause Mrs. Baskerville harm or injury. Again, we are here today because of a prank meant to cause laughter, causing death. At the end of the trial, Ms. Shelby Hollahan will come before you and ask for a verdict of guilty.
Thank you, prosecution. Defense, do you have an opening statement you'd like to present?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury that bad things happen to good people. Alan Funt simply made a false elevator prank that went wrong. Charlene Baskerville was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Today we will call forward Alan Funt, Ashton Michael, and Albert Milgram to present our evidence to prove that Alan Funt is not guilty of involuntary manslaughter. She is not responsible for the tragic death of Miss Baskerville. Bad things happen to good people, and at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Rashika Singh, will come forward and ask you for a verdict of not guilty.
Thank you, defense. All right, would the prosecution like to call their very first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Officer Lee Strad.
Officer Lee Strad? For the record, you've been previously sworn in. Yes, Your Honor. Shelby directed me. Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Officer Lee Strad.
What do you do for a living?
I've been a police officer with the Des Moines Police Department for about 12 years. Police work has always been one of my passions.
What did you do before joining the police force?
I served in the Army for 8 years before I was honorably discharged. And when I came home, I wanted to continue one of my passions, so I became a police officer.
How were you involved in the incident on June 2nd?
I was the investigating officer that morning around 10:30 a.m.
When you came in, what was happening?
I entered the lobby and I noticed a woman in her mid to late 50s dead at the scene.
What did you do to start your investigation?
I first spoke with the paramedics to see what was going on, and then I interviewed a few of the witnesses that were there.
What did the witness say they saw from outside the elevator?
They said that when they first got there, they saw an out-of-order sign on the real elevator that had since been removed. They noticed that the Baskervilles, the woman and the daughter that were there, they entered the trick elevator, and that Devin, the daughter, was wearing a walking cast on one of her legs.
Did they hear anything?
A minute or so after the Baskervilles got in the fake elevator, they heard screaming and the door slid open. That's when one of the witnesses had to call 911.
What was Miss Funt doing when you came in?
Miss Funt was standing by the elevator talking on her cell phone. I had unfortunately dealt with Miss Funt before and confronted her about the prank.
What did Miss Funt say about the prank?
She told me she was able to see everything from a small control room in the back. She also mentioned that she did recognize the Baskervilles when they came in and still allowed the prank to occur.
Did you talk to the actors involved?
Yes, I spoke with Ashton Michael, the actor involved in the prank. Ashton said that the people approaching the elevator looked familiar, and that the director seemed insistent that he give it all he could to scare them as much as possible.
I'd like to shift your attention to your past with Alan Funt. You said that you have dealt with another prank mishap by Miss Funt. What happened then?
I was investigating an incident in which a person was injured. In that prank, Devin Baskerville was injured being chased by a fake zombie.
Now let's talk about your thoughts on the elevator prank. Do you believe that Alan Funt set up the prank just for Charlene and Devin Baskerville?
I don't know if the Baskervilles were the only intended target of the prank, but Alan knew who they were and made sure that they were the victims of the scare.
Have you talked to Funt about how these pranks could cause someone to get hurt?
Yes, I warned Alan after Devin was hurt in the zombie prank that people would continue to be hurt by these types of actions.
Do you think Alan Funt specifically intended the death of Charlene Baskerville?
I don't know if Alan meant to kill Miss Baskerville, but she intentionally set up a situation designed to cause them fear and harm.
No further questions.
Thank you, prosecution. Do we have a cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. So, officer, you routinely investigate reports of vandalism, burglary, and criminal mischief, correct?
Yes, I do.
Is someone who only does something on occasion an expert?
Excuse me?
So, would you say that someone who only does something on occasion is an expert?
It depends on what it is, I guess.
So, would you go skydiving with someone who isn't an expert and only does it on occasion?
Hopefully not.
Okay. So, and you, officer, only investigate suspicious deaths on occasion, correct?
Yes, luckily, and when we don't have too many suspicious deaths, so we don't have to investigate them very often.
I would like to direct your attention now to July 2nd, the day of the incident. You said that on July 2nd, you were finishing up paperwork for another case in the afternoon when you got the call about the incident with Miss Baskerville, correct?
Yes, I did.
What time frame would you consider afternoon?
Anytime after 12.
But in your affidavit, you stated that you got the call at 10:32 a.m., but you said it was afternoon. However, a minute ago, you just said that 10:30 a.m. isn't afternoon. Why would you contradict yourself?
Oh, I didn't finish up the paperwork until the afternoon. I first reported to the scene at 10:30 in the morning.
So you have dealt with Alan before, correct?
Yes. Ms. Funt is a little bit famous for her attempted pranks that result in people's injuries.
Would you say that you don't like her?
No, not particularly. She was rather nonchalant about a woman's death, and I don't really appreciate that.
In your affidavit, you stated that she was arrogant, egotistical, and completely uncooperative and unremorseful. Would you consider that biased?
I don't know if it's biased. It didn't influence my investigation at all, but those are my personal feelings.
You also said that you warned Alan before the things that would not end for her well, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
You also said that you warned Aline before things that would not end for her well.
Yes, I did. I told her when Devin was injured in the first prank that if she continued these dangerous stunts, someone could get hurt.
Would you say that you were prosecuting Aline out of spite and just wanted to prove a point?
Not at all. I arrested the person who I felt was guilty of this crime based on the evidence and the witnesses that I interviewed.
In your affidavit, you stated, I guess I proved my point, correct?
Yes, Aline's finally being held responsible for the dangerous actions she's been taking.
No further questions.
Thank you, defense. Is there any more questions for this witness? Ms. Stroud, you are dismissed.
Thank you.
Would the prosecution like to call their second witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Devin Baskerville to the stand.
Ms. Baskerville, you can approach the witness stand. You have previously been sworn in. Prosecution, you may begin.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Devin Baskerville. I'm 22 years old.
What is your relationship to Charlene Baskerville?
She was my mother.
Can you explain what happened on June 26, 2013?
My mother received an email to meet Miss Funt on July 2nd
Why did you need an appointment with Funt?
for a settlement offer from a previous prank in which I broke my ankle.
What happened during the previous prank?
My mother and I were going to a farmer's market when she saw a sign for a sale. We were heading there when a bunch of disgusting-looking people attacked us.
How many times had you met with Funt before the email?
None.
Now I would like to direct your attention to July 2nd, 2013 at the production company. What happened?
One of the elevators was out of order, so we went into another one.
Once you got in the elevator, what happened?
The car started vibrating, and I thought it was just going up until it went dark, and something came out of nowhere. I jumped in front of my mother, but when the elevator opened, she was on the floor, dead.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have cross-examination in this witness.
Yes, we do.
Hello, Ms. Baskerville. This may be a difficult topic, but I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Have you met Alan Funt previously?
Yeah, one, not directly.
And you were in a previous video of his in Long Beach, correct?
Yes.
And you were injured while filming the video?
Yes.
And after the injury, you tried to get Ms. Funt to pay for the medical bills, but the settlement was never made.
We were heading there when the elevator crash happened.
So you were not exactly happy with Ms. Funt, even before the death of your mother?
No.
Now I'd like to direct your attention to the elevator accident. Do you believe Ms. Funt could have possibly targeted you and your mother?
Yes, I do believe that.
Did you hear or see that the prank was intentionally for you?
No, I didn't.
And are you aware that the prank was performed on several people before you?
No, I was not.
Do you know that Ms. Funt states that she creates a safe work environment?
If it was safe, then why did I break my ankle?
Can you point out anything unsafe about the elevator?
It was shaking.
Are you aware that the elevator diagram, as shown in Exhibit 6, has a handrail put there specifically for safety purposes?
No, it was not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there any further questions for this witness? No? You are excused. Thank you very much. Third witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Dr. Drew Watson.
Dr. Drew Watson, would you please approach the stand? You have been previously sworn. You may be in.
Please state your name.
My name is Dr. Drew Watson.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a cardiologist.
Where do you work?
I work at Drake University Hospital.
How long have you been a cardiologist?
I've been working for 10 years and I worked more than 250 cases.
Why did you want to be a heart doctor?
Well, during a hike in the forest, my mom died from a heart condition and we didn't have a doctor to save her. She had a heart attack and started to spaz out and loses her breath. She then fainted and I knew she was still alive, so I started to fan her with my Yankees hat that I had on my head. As she stopped moving, then when I realized she was dead.
Why were you involved in today's case?
I was called a consultant to Charlene Baskerville's death.
Do you know what happened to Charlene Baskerville?
Yeah, she died of cardiomyopathy.
Can you explain what that means?
The body has a protective mechanism called a fight or flight. It means you can run or face your fear. Also, her adrenaline level was stress cardiomyopathy is 2 or 3 higher than a people normal have. If one of those are triggered, you will drop dead.
Tell me this process.
Well, something hot, sharp, or anything that makes you jerk a body part back is called a response to stimuli. Let's take a hot pan for an example. When your finger touches it, your heart pumps 5 times faster to deliver the oxygen the muscles need to contract and move the hand away to skin so it won't be damaged.
Now tell me, how did she die?
In this situation, when she was scared, her adrenaline was very high that caused her death.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do you have cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, we do. Hi.
All right.
Could you just please explain the Takotsubo syndrome one more time so I can get more of an understanding of it?
It's like the flight or flight, like your heart adrenaline keeps pumping, and somehow somehow person's body can overdo it and you can get a heart attack from it.
And the Takotsubo syndrome, is it also known as stress cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome?
It's also known as stress cardiomyopathy.
What triggers a syndrome to occur in a person?
Anything can trigger it. It depends on what you do to trigger it.
Is fear an emotion that can cause it?
Yeah.
Is it the only emotion that can trigger it?
Not exactly. Anything can trigger it. You can be running, you could trigger it, or your emotions.
Could she have had this pre-existing condition before she got into the elevator?
Excuse me, can you say that again?
Could she have had this pre-existing condition before she got into the elevator?
Most likely she wouldn't.
So this Takotsubo syndrome, which she had, just developed in the mere seconds while she was in the elevator.
Yeah, probably, because she got feared.
In your statement, you said it was a good possibility that she could have been genetically predisposed to stress cardiomyopathy.
Yep.
So she had it beforehand. Okay. And you also stated in your statement that if someone was already genetically predisposed to it, they would have had a better chance of risk of sudden death, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, you also mentioned in your statement that simple starter reactions could have disrupted the heart's rhythm, right?
Yep.
So any startling event could have caused this.
Most likely it can possibly start it.
Okay. In your affidavit, you explained the fight or flight response, correct?
Yep.
Isn't that response usually brought on by fear?
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that other emotions and other random things could have caused this stress cardiomyopathy to occur, not just fear.
Yeah, not just fear.
So if earlier that day, before she got into the elevator, anything had happened, if a car backfired nearby her, she could have dropped down the street?
To my expressions, I think so.
Could anyone possibly have predicted this unfortunate accident?
Pretty much, yeah.
How could someone could have predicted it? There were no telltale signs or symptoms.
Just a doctor.
So you got exhibit 2. Can I submit some evidence?
Present it to the witness first. Thank you.
Do you agree with the medical statement? In exhibit 2.
I agree.
So it says that it was a suspected myocardial infarction, correct? Because it was suspected, is it possible that something else could have caused it to occur?
Possibly.
You examined the body, right?
No, I didn't examine the body. They just called me to consult it.
So you didn't examine the body yourself at all?
No.
Never saw the body?
I never saw the body.
So is it possible that the medical examiner who did the autopsy, Walker Hill, as it states on the bottom of exhibit 2, is it possible he could have made a mistake during the autopsy?
Most likely, yeah. He could, probably.
So based on that, is it possible that your diagnosis, which is mainly based on his report, could be flawed?
To be honest, 50-50%, yeah.
And further questions?
Thank you. You may be excused at this time. Thank you. Does the prosecution have any more witnesses? No, Your Honor. Well, at this time, the prosecution rests its case in chief, and we're going to take a 5-minute break before we begin the defense case in chief.